3 brave participants.
Oh, I'll do it.
Thank you.
Right.
Woo!
Awesome. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, wait.
Do you want to do it?
Yes.
Good, man. Hey, what's up?
So Adrian, it's handy. Awesome. So everyone, I'm Michael. I have Brendan and Maurice in Brendan's apartment in LA streaming in. You're about to experience a short excerpt of a live VR musical called NPC. When we enter this part of the show, the NPC, the non-player character, is navigating the 4th stage of grief, depression, and goes up to acceptance. So this story is all about the NPC, what they do after the hero of their video game has died. So everything you're seeing, none of it is pre-recorded. All of it is rendered in real time. Both Brendan and Maurice are performing live. You can see them in their matching purple jackets. Sorry, what's your name one more
My name
time?
is Chris.
Chris, I'm gonna have you step to your right just because you're blocking the projector a
I'm
little
sorry, I walked.
bit. 2 more steps for me. 2 more steps. You're back right. Keep going. Keep going. Perfect. Okay, everyone stay right where you are. So we, this is one performance by Brendan, myself, Clemence DeBake, who's in the top left there. We're all part of this group called OnBoardXR. We do early prototype performances regularly. We've done about 6 in the last few years. This came out of a group of theater artists who were wanting to do more performances outside of Zoom at the start of the pandemic. So we really explored the XR territory in there. So we've done, 6 showcases, like 35 prototypes, and a lot of them have grown out of these showcases to take on a much bigger life, like NPC. And a lot of them, like Clem's gotten some funding from the British government to build out her performance as well. Mm-hmm. But I want to introduce you to some of the other practitioners who are doing this kind of work as well. There's the meta-movie folks who are building in the platform called Neos. There is Agile Lens, which has built this wonderful performance of A Christmas Carol in their bespoke platform, Havenue. There's Ferryman Collective. If you check out anyone, I would highly recommend checking out Ferryman Collective. They usually come to South by and win it each year, but they've made Welcome to Respite and Gumball Dreams, and they mainly build in VR chat.
They do my audience class every semester.
They do?
Just
Wonderful.
Get to try it out.
We do.
Yeah.
There's Double I Studios. They build in Horizon and Altspace. And then I want to reference 2 projects which aren't doing so much live performance anymore, but really were the first movers at the start of the pandemic to put live performers in their video games to bring more life to them. So those really kickstarted what I would say is a lot of the work that's come out of there were Adventure Lab and Tender Claws is the Tempest. Just a bit about where this stuff is happening. There are a lot of festivals that are dedicated to XR that you should check out. There's the Queensland Festival, Spoils Fest, which is part of Oregon Shakes. VRTO, Fibers, and PXR are all based in Toronto. I can also share this at the end if people want to grab those. Also on the QR codes there, the workshop experiences one has a list of all of these links in there. VR Awards, Rain Dance, all of those are really great places if you're making early work to get programmed. Within larger institutions, there are dedicated XR experiences within there. South by has the XR experience. Has anyone worked that or been part of it? I know everyone has. No one has. Well, if you get the chance this year, I know in the past y'all have had students work it. So.
Yeah, and we're gonna host the XR, I think, this year.
Really? Oh my goodness.
We're talking with ASU about partnering with them on it.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's
working on it.
If you get the chance, definitely do XR experience. It's in town. It's great. Sundance has New Frontier, La Biennial in Venice, the Fringe Festival, Edinburgh Fringe Festival, typically a theater festival, is doing a lot. The Kaohsiung Festival in Taiwan is amazing. Ferryman Collective's done a lot with them. Cannes, Tribeca, and the Avignon Festival, all of them have been exploring, but a lot of them focus more on pre-recorded video experiences, so less of the live performer stuff. And then technical conferences, we've performed at both SIGGRAPH and USITT in the past, done little excerpts there. Those are also great avenues. They're interested in case studies. So if you're looking for places, check out all of these if you want to submit your work or get it looked at. VR events in general. Has anyone been to a VR concert? This is, Fortnite, Roblox, right? A few people. But typically existing multiplayer platforms will partner with a famous celebrity and do one of these one-off engagements. And pretty much all of it is pre-recorded. So you're not getting the actual live performance. The only thing that's live about it is you hanging out with the audience. And I think Fortnite does a really good job of that, like really putting you in a lobby with other people experiencing it for the first time. And that's what makes the experience special, at least to me, is being able to share it with folks. But others have, other platforms have been adding in some more interactivity. Amaze did a project with Megan Thee Stallion. You can see that people gather in person and all wear headsets, so it's a bit more of an interactive experience there. Megan Thee Stallion isn't there, it's all pre-recorded, but Justin Bieber did a performance in the platform called Wave, where people could use their phones to stream in for seconds or send comments. And then there are also location-based AR experiences like the Gorillas in Times Square, where it's not live in terms of the performance, but it's live in terms of how you're being asked to experience the project. So when I think about this a lot, a lot of these for me are pretty lackluster. I don't really seek them out. And I think about them in terms of, could that be improved with more live performance? And what are the reasons why people choose not to do it? I think the biggest one is stability, as you saw today with a lot of Wi-Fi going out or audio not being connected. There is that stability part, which a big platform needs to have that in there. But I'd be interested to hear your opinions about where the metaverse is right now, what could make it a little bit more exciting. I think live events could be a big part, but I also do want to reference, like, liveness is not the only key here. This is an image from the U2 concert in the Sphere. All of those graphics, I heard like it took multiple years to produce, so none of it's rendered live. It's all carefully crafted, but it doesn't really matter because it's just incredible. It's mind-blowing, and the technology works pretty seamlessly with the live performance. Cool. So in terms of platforms, most of our peers are using ones that require you to download an app onto your headset. You typically need a headset in order to access them. However, we choose to work in the web, in WebXR, which is any XR that runs in your browser. So you don't need to download anything. You can access it as easy as copying and pasting a link, and you get the benefit of being able to run on multiple devices and platforms there. I want to explore kind of the difference of getting into one of these experiences as a virtual performer or a virtual audience member compared to WebXR, compared to some other platforms. So WebXR is typically associated with lower poly stuff, where going in for the first time, you might get an onboarding email, you'll enter your URL into the browser, you'll go through the login flow, and then you connect with the performers in there. For 4 steps in total, no app downloads, no account creation. With VR chat, which a lot more people choose to work with, you get higher quality, higher graphics, but there are more steps to get in there. You have to, once you get the email, you have to download the app, you have to sign up, you have to create an account and request someone to invite you to the world. You have to wait multiple times to get it, and then finally you're in for the show after about 8 steps. So that's 8 steps where things could go wrong, or you might not have explained it to your audience member correctly in the email. So reducing those steps is important to make these more accessible. Then at the very highest end, with WebXR, with VR chat, none of these are optimized for a live performance. It's not meant to be used in this way, but if you do decide to make your own app that is highly optimized, chances are you'll have to upload it via side quest to your participants headset. So if you're not in the room with them to put that in, you're going to ask them to do a lot of that development work yourself, where you're making a developer account, you're enabling it, you're optimizing for any issues with Windows, you're asking them to upload a text file to it, you're asking them to start up this custom app that might not have the best UI, and then finally, after 31 steps you're getting in, this is an actual performance. I'm not going to say who it is, but one of our peers, it's an incredible experience. It's incredibly innovative in the way that it's engaging the audience, but almost no one can get into it without guidance, without someone doing it for them. So, but WebXR is not a silver bullet. Like I said, these aren't optimized for them. It's kind of like a square peg in a round hole. And trying to put these live experiences in the web, you don't have as much graphic fidelity. You're also working across multiple devices to try and get them the experience optimized for a mobile phone, just like a desktop or a VR headset. You have to deal with user moderation. A lot of times, anonymous people can come into your experience and really mess about if they want to, and there's not really easy ways to ban them if they haven't created an account. And lastly, it's just not optimized for multiplayer networking. If you get 20 audio streams going in there at once, it's not going to run as well on the web browser as it would in VR chat or a dedicated platform for multiplayer. Do you have a question?
Yeah, is this built on like 3JS or A-frame?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the platform that we experience today, that's all 3JS, and the entity component system is called BitECS. It used to be A-frame, but it's kind of more of a bespoke thing now. So yeah, all 3JS, which if people aren't familiar, that's the kind of lower level library for making 3D graphics in the web. Cool. So in general, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, but for Brendan and I, we're really passionate about the challenge of fusing these live interactions into an event. And often that comes at the cost of stability, like you experienced today. But we personally think that right now it is worth the fight to go for a more interactive experience. Also, we think that it's more important for it to be accessible than to be very visually impressive and innovative, but people not being able to get into your experience. And then as a caveat, it's all for now. It could become a lot different in the future. This is just kind of a snapshot of where we see the limitations right now between that. But I'd be curious if anyone has other experiences with events online, if you've had any that have gone pretty seamlessly. Anyone?
Yeah, like there's like different platforms like like Decentraland and like Sandbox. Like I've gone to events and like Crypto Voxels. I think it's just called Voxels now. But like it has pretty seamless multiplayer and it's all browser based.
When you join, do you usually do it on the headset in Oculus browser or just on your desktop?
Just on the desktop.
Yeah. Typically I do as well for those that have WebXR enabled.
Yeah, that was my first time going into VR from a headset though. Like starting from headset to browser to VR, like that was my first time experiencing that.
Yeah,
So that was interesting.
Has anyone used the browser for just like searching the internet in VR before? Sometimes. Yeah. There are some really impressive experiences.
I love it when it's like set up in front of me. You know, the one that you can set up where it creates your whole desktop and your computer. And have you seen those?
Is it like a
work
pass-through
room?
experience where you're seeing it's workroom?
Workroom?
Workroom.
Yeah.
I haven't
and
experienced.
Yeah, and it literally sets up your whole desk and you can see your screens in front of you.
Gotcha.
There's a company here in Austin. What is Jesse's company? Win Reality. They work majority in their headsets all day using Workroom.
Gotcha. Very cool. And I'm assuming they'll use a browser like that to be able to access a lot of their software.
Yeah.
We went through it a bit, but any kind of questions about that experience, or is anyone, are folks here mainly technical, game design, or any, theater, performer, film as well? Okay. Show of hands, who considers themselves interested in the technical side of VR, like actually building the worlds, the experiences? Pretty much everyone. Anyone interested in live performance?
I have a question. Do you have any recommendations for like learning to build in WebXR specifically?
Yes, I have many. I would say, depending on where you're starting, if you're interested in coding, Three.js is still the kind of bread and butter of WebXR. Babylon is the kind of up and comer. It's having a lot of success in some platforms, and there are some incredible ones. But I would say learning Three.js is always going to be helpful. Learning Blender, some experiences can go from Unity into the web. Very few can go from Unreal into the web, but Blender is kind of the standard for putting experiences and exporting into there. Also, some of the mechanics that you might be used to in Unity that you might not find in Blender, like putting together interactive stuff, that's coming up as well. So
you build it first in Unity and then you export it for web?
some platforms, so not the ones that
Or you do it in
experience.
Three.js.
Yeah, so we actually do it in an in-browser editor, and I've built out this little queuing system so that we can trigger these events. But typically people either use Blender or an in-browser thing for Mozilla Hubs, which is where that experience is. But we are working with other platforms too that don't use those tools. They are doing more Unity into their Spatial IO is the big platform that goes from Unity into WebXR.
Don't you, on your Discord server, don't you have like a whole challenge you do and bring people in with the workshop?
Yeah. So in terms of getting involved, there are some good links on there if you want to connect with us and do that. We regularly host these prototyping sessions. We're looking for really anyone of any practice. A lot of the people who have participated in the past have no technical background. A lot of people do, and so it's really interesting to see those groups of people, those practices meet together. But if you look in there, there is applications to our showcase if you feel ready to present. But then otherwise, joining our Discord, there's kind of a step-by-step challenge if you feel like you want to get up to speed with this kind of work. So that's a great way to get connected. Also, just feel free to email me or DM me in there if you have any.
I'll put your Discord server in TXI server.
Great.
Yeah.
With the new mixed reality headsets, do you guys see yourself kind of shifting gears towards more mixed reality?
I absolutely want to. I haven't been able to yet, especially just because I don't do a ton with AR that requires a engine like Unity or Unreal. My stuff is I'm much more interested in the web, and web AR is still not as far along as the other platforms. But in general, I think having an ability for the spectator audience for an experience like this to be able to hold up their phones and see it, not just what's projected in world, but also have the experience crafted for the space itself. That's super interesting for me. Yeah. If you can make it feel more embodied than just watching on a 2D screen.
I have a question just about timeline. I'm just curious about it because you mentioned something about COVID and people missing live action. So when did this start? Like, when did you get into it? When did it develop into something that you can share on a theater level?
So there have been some folks, namely none of those organizations I would say were some of the first practitioners. People from them went on to. So the founder of Agile Lens, Alex Coulomb, and one of the leaders of Double I Studios, Kira Benzing, they did some of the earliest performances in kind of like 2016, 2017, so pre-pandemic, but then of course, once the pandemic happened, everything just kind of, everyone was looking for another way to perform outside of Zoom.
Yeah.
There was a group called the Fifth Wall Forum that gathered at the start of the pandemic. Largely, I think it was a lot of theater performers who were looking for alternatives. And then from there, everyone's kind of spread out. So I got involved after kind of graduating college. I had been part of Brendan's lab at NYU. I had been studying acting and then went on to pivot to a more technical role when the pandemic hit because I wanted to explore new technology in live performance.
So you started learning this technology in like 2020?
Yeah.
Okay. And now you're like a technical advisor?
Well, you wouldn't believe it after kind of the shakiness of today. But yeah, I started out just studying acting. I was in the same kind of conservatory acting program as Brendan was in New York, and just when the pandemic happened, everyone I feel like kind of like shifted and tried to find other stuff. And this I'd been working with technology doing experimental stuff, but really this was a great opportunity to continue with that after school. So yeah, I learned to code in 2020 and since then have been basically just all online.
So were you self-taught or did you have to go into a program to learn?
I-
It seems like this is just developing.
I was
as it's going.
I was really lucky. There's a wonderful program at NYU called ITP, which is the Interactive Telecommunications Program. That department's, I think, in many ways shares a lot of kind of values of this institute as well. But I was studying acting and I was able to kind of backdoor into that as a one-year master's program when everything was happening. So I was super fortunate to be able to make that pivot
Yeah.
and get those more technical skills. Okay.
What were the coding languages that you used the most?
I've all just done JavaScript, but anything in Unity is
Like
also C# is going to be important too. More and more places are though using just visual scripting stuff. So Unreal has their node-based system. Yeah, I really enjoy. I also like I liked languages a lot growing up. So actually like coding out the languages was more my style. But JavaScript, TypeScript, and the libraries built on top of there, like 3JS.
And did you hear Unity now has an AI assistant that helps you in Unity?
Oh, yeah.
To it.
Very cool.
It's so good.
Yeah, I haven't tried that out just because I don't use Unity too much.
Yeah.
Are any folks here like more on the code side or more on the Unity side?
I was in AUT, so we worked a lot in Unity for like game development.
Very,
Yeah, C# was like a thing.
yeah, getting the actual scripting. Yeah.
So
Other questions? I don't know what time it is. Oh, it's 2 minutes. Things flew by today because of we had a little bit of a delayed start. I'm happy to hang out as long as y'all will have me, but
Have you, I'm curious, like, because this is live event stuff that you can do in kind of this XR. No one's done anything like, remember HQ trivia that was really popular, where at noon everyone logged on real time for this game show. Y'all remember this?
honestly, I've seen Mr.
On the
Beast.
mobile device.
I do.
Yeah,
Because he won prizes if he got like the answers right. So
exactly.
you have to get them.
So like, why not is that, yeah.
Yeah, like lots.
Like a live TV show.
I think
Yeah,
we have fun,
function.
like having a kind of stage presence and doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like programmed experiences, like at a certain time, if you're not there, you miss it.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah, and kind of instead of it just being a screen, it'd be some sort of like environment you do. Like bring back the variety show.
Yeah.
What I like about that a lot is with HQ how consistent they were. You do it every single day, and I feel like with a lot of the events that you see, it requires a full dev team, it requires a huge production budget, it requires you to partner with a big star, but something like that, like it's not incredibly technically complicated.
Yeah.
The networking is a little tough, and like making sure people their inputs are recognized and that they get the money at the end. But in general, it's pretty technically simple, and it happens every single day, so people can begin to experience it more than just this one time.
And they'd be coming in as avatars
Mhm.
So you could do like a variety show where they have to like sing or dance or do something, and quite entertaining.
I know, Aaron, when you brought that up, I thought of, I think Mr. Beast had some knockoff of that, like hold your thumb on the app for
Oh, yeah.
the last person to take their phone, like almost like hand on a
Yeah.
hard body kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
And I heard technically like it kind of failed and people got pretty mad about it, so there was some backlash. But that was the only other kind of example I've heard of other than HQ.
Look for the holes, people.
Mhm.
Can you see how you could use live XR for your upcoming immersive production?
Budget, yeah.
Yeah.
You can see it. I think I can see
Seventy-five
it.
K, 75.
I can see it.
I can't even think of something
I
that
can
costs
imagine.
75K, I'm gonna bust out my move.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What do you use for live XR and augmented reality? Like, is that possible?
In augmented reality, so that's a good question. I think, so we choose to piggyback off a lot of multiplayer experiences. So instead of building our own app, we use Mozilla Hubs, VR Chat, Roblox, because
Right.
that networking is already built into there. So I don't know of many AR platforms that are doing that kind of networking already built in. So I think there certainly are some. I worked on a project with a wonderful director named Stephanie Riggs. Erin, have you ever met Stephanie?
No.
Let me see, Odeon Theatrical. This was 2021. I have to go straight to the URL. I don't know if they're still in stealth mode or not. Okay. Anyway, they're working a lot on AR, and in 2021, we had the opportunity, I was still living in New York at the time, to do an experience with the cast of Aladdin. And we had audience members with iPads in, what was the venue called? I want to say New Stages, but it was just kind of a general space in there that we really tidied up, and then we had a virtual genie, and then Jawan Crawley, who plays the genie in Aladdin, like popped out for mixing the physical and the virtual.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
yeah, so Stephanie's team, they're I think building their own technology for those AR experiences. The Gorillas experience that I mentioned earlier, that's a great example of another. I don't think it's multiplayer, so you can't see other folks. But I'm just going on the slide.
Have you built in Horizon? I hear that's really simple to build in.
I've heard it's simple. However, we really rely for our networking. We rely on the ability to signal out of the platform, so
Got it.
web signaling. So make an HTTP request or something like that. And Horizon's pretty closed off. You can't. But Curative Benzing of Double Eye Studios does a lot with Horizon, I know.
Oh, okay.
And they're doing more at kind of the variety show or even talk show level is what I've seen more of. So less kind of big animations and triggerable events, and more just kind of you bring a person on and they'll do a small performance with their avatar or a few props.
Right. And what's this one that we're looking at?
This is the Gorillas experience in Times Square. So that was a pretty big moment, I think, sometime in 2022, where yeah, they had mapped it to all of the Times Square billboards in there.
Was that like an app or was it like web AR?
I think it was probably an app. However, I think, you know, with all of these, if you have to download an app, that's going to cut down on your user base compared to just using a QR code to go to your browser.
Any other questions?
Thank you all so much
Thank
for
you.
bearing with us through the technical choppiness and for all of your questions about it. So,
Thank you.
please reach out if you have any questions for me or for Brendan, if anyone's like wants to know more on the musicianship side or on the performer side, Brendan and Maurice would love to connect.
I have a quick question about the music. Is it a time lapse because you're doing it in real time? Because audio usually takes longer to transfer over the signals, so.
That's a good question. So when we're doing it in person, there's no issue since we're sharing the space with people. But when we're doing it virtually, we try and synchronize the audio with what's coming through the platform. And oftentimes we'll just use, so for Mozilla Hubs, the audio will come through that avatar into Mozilla Hubs. And Brendan has a really interesting setup. His he has a lot of like Logic, the actual application Logic setup, and then he plugs a virtual cable into his computer. And with WebXR, you can get a desktop in there as an avatar. And so that audio output from Logic is going into the world. So you don't need to somehow find a way to plug Logic into your headset. You can just go straight from your desktop with WebXR into there, which allows him to do that cool mix of his reverb, Maurice's audio going in, his audio
The
going
auto
in.
tuning.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm. So that's another benefit of WebXR right now is that's, I don't know of many other people who can do that kind of audio into their headset that would be required. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.